Good afternoon, welcome to the UK Column News. It is the 28th of January 2014, it's just gone 1 o'clock. Myself, Louise Collins, Brian Garish and Mike are here in the studio on a really wet and miserable day. You might as well talk about the weather because we're going to start off with weather.
Well, I can just say you may, during this programme, be able to hear Plymouth rain hammering on the studio window, so we know it's pretty gruesome out there, wet, grey, cold, unpleasant, clearly all caused by global warming.
Exactly, it's more grimmer up north apparently, there's snow.
More grimmer.
More grimmer, yeah.
We'll let you off with that one today. So what's the cause of all the bad weather in Plymouth and elsewhere? Well,
global warming.
Global warming.
And guess what? Prince Charles is calling for a Magna Carta to save the Earth from global warming. But as you covered yesterday, Brian...
we had yet another scientist coming forward and saying, well, if you want to really understand what global warming is about, it's a $22 billion scam to raise taxes on the base of a lie. So we have covered 1,000 scientists signing up and saying it's a scam. Here's another one coming forward. What have we got? One of the wealthiest men in Britain, possibly one of the wealthiest men in the world. And not only is he pushing global warming, but notice the brilliant twist, the nudging. Let's get Magna Carta not linked to common law and what's happening in Britain, but let's link it into global warming.
That's great, isn't it? They haven't mentioned the beavers.
No, they haven't actually. We won't mention the royal beavers today. We'll have another look at that in due course. But what we can say is, well, it goes on and on. Here's madness from the Western Morning News. Well, they're reporting the madness, to be fair. Australian Prime Minister defends Prince Philip's knighthood. And this is the man in question, Tony Abbott. And he has absolutely stunned people in Australia and his fellow politicians by proposing that the Duke of Edinburgh should get a knighthood. So it was an honour to honour the Duke of Edinburgh with a knighthood. And there's been a big social media backlash in which many said they thought the news was a joke. Well, we had a little look at Tony Abbott, and what we discovered was he had a BA in philosophy, politics, economics as a Rhodes Scholar at Queen's College, Oxford. So we couldn't call him a place man, we're going to call him a place idiot. But obviously he's been trained in one of the Queen's private colleges, so it's not surprising he should be recommending her husband for an award. It would be laughable, of course, if it wasn't so serious. We just asked the Western Morning News, what was the purpose of reporting this?
I don't know.
I really
don't know.
But of course, we can all trust Britain's royal family. And
totally.
You decided to have a little look about Andrew.
Okay, so lawyers for convicted paedophile and close friend of Prince Andrew, Jeffrey Epstein, have said have put in a plea. Have said that plea bargaining letters that so far have been confidential should remain so in the run-up to the Virginia Andrews court date. Lawyers say that making these secret letters public, which are believed to mention Prince Andrew, would just cause a media frenzy and that they should stay secret. So we're not going to have full transparency in this case, clearly. They're going to try and shut it down at every corner.
Well, of
and
course,
he's still denying it.
Well, what annoys me, which I'm very happy to say on air, is that this man goes to Davos. He uses Davos as a public place to say whether he did or did not do something. So I'm going to say British royal family, it's just become disgusting. Do they represent me? I'm afraid they don't. Are they representing the rest of us in UK? I don't think so either. So what we've got is this immensely wealthy family feeding off the back of the British public, and what they're getting up to in private, is that important? Yes, because I don't think you can have a private political life, and Prince Andrew is clearly a political man.
It looks like evidence is stacking up against him, so we'll just have to wait and see.
We will. Well, of course, where we won't be going for any assistance on getting the truth about the abuse of young women or children is the BBC. But on a slightly different topic, here was the reaction from a BBC to somebody who got upset at the BBC's, what they called the hype. This was an email sent into the UK column. Hi Brian, you can't fail to have noticed all the hype about the liberation of Auschwitz covered on The Big Question on BBC last Sunday, with Nikki Campbell presenting. In set, they covered just about every aspect of this nightmare you could think of, with one exception. The fact that Israel are doing to the Palestinian things which are just as vile as what the Nazis did to the Jews. One brave woman in the invited audience did start to go down this path, but was quickly shouted down, and the camera averted to a more compliant audience member. I complained to the BBC by email, and this is the reply that I received. So let's bring this up on screen. It will be a little bit small. We'll read you through it. It says, "Dear Mr. Williamson, thank you for contacting us regarding BBC One's The Big Questions as broadcast on the 25th of January. We understand you feel this programme failed to tackle the issue of Israeli actions in Gaza, and you believe this showed bias. This episode of The Big Questions was part of our Holocaust memorial coverage and asked the question, is the time coming to lay the Holocaust to rest? As such, a discussion of Israeli actions and behaviour today was not thought to be directly relevant. That does not mean the BBC chooses to ignore the situation in Gaza, and the BBC has given considerable coverage to contemporary events in the Middle East and to the history of the region, and we will continue to do so, ensuring that all viewpoints are represented. We value your feedback about this issue. All complaints are sent to senior management and programme makers every morning, and we included your points in this overnight report. These reports are among the most widely read sources of feedback in the BBC and ensure your complaint is seen by the right people quickly. This helps inform their decisions about current and future programmes. Thank you for taking the time to contact us." So typical BBC, what it actually does is reverts to the old stand of justifying itself. And of course, nobody must go near these issues, and the BBC clearly does not do any full investigative reporting over the true situation in the Middle East.
Can I just jump in now? I don't know if you can get the slide back up. But what I want to say is the paragraph where it says that does not mean the BBC chooses to ignore the situation in Gaza, and the BBC has given considerable coverage to contemporary events. What, like putting wrong photographs up, picturing the picture of India when they're saying it was Egypt, the bodies, exactly.
Yes. And of course, the BBC simply not being brought to account over these issues. Well, not in the mainstream media. The only place it's actually the truth is coming to the surface is so-called alternative media over the internet, which is why we're here. But interestingly enough, the Independent is reporting that an Israeli human rights group has been criticising the Israeli cabinet over unlawful bombings of residential buildings in Gaza during the summer war. Now, I'm aware as I'm saying this that we have Christians in the audience who have been getting quite prickly over any criticism of Israel. We're going to do this over a slightly longer period and have a look at what's really being reported. At the end of the day, the UK column is after the truth and the facts as to who is doing what. But with regard to this particular report, we're going to ask a question. We're going to say, just what did the Conservative and Labour friends of Israel do to stop the unlawful bombing? So we have our politicians deeply connected in support of Israel. What did they do to stop this unlawful bombing? And the answer is, well, nothing, as they were too busy with their own unlawful bombing of Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and now Syria. So if viewers and listeners aren't aware of the impact of Conservative Friends of Israel and Labour, do your own research. And it becomes very interesting to see that British politics seems to have a view skewed in one particular direction.
Yeah, you forgot to mention also there's also Lib Dem Friends of Israel and UKIP Friends of Israel as well.
This is quite
They're
true.
across the board. I don't know about the Green Party. I don't know if they've got Friends of Israel as well. I might have to have a look into that.
I don't know, but we covered the issue because it is a sensitive one before by saying, what would everybody say if we had all of our politicians in Westminster supporting Friends of Italy or Friends of Greece?
Friends of Gaza.
It gets interesting. There are some friends of is it Gaza or Palestinian? We know.
I hope so.
But what we're saying in this is let's get down to the detail of what is being said by whom and why. Well, if we want truth about Iraq, It's over to you.
Don't go here. Okay, so Sir John Chilcot will go in front of MPs next month to answer questions about the latest delay in publishing the report into the Iraq War. The Select Committee say they will question Chilcot on the preparation of the report and the outstanding obstacles that are delaying it. But Sir Jeremy Hayward, who's head of civil service, says there was no evidence that anyone has tried to hold up the inquiry. And apparently Sir Jeremy will be the one who has the final say over what documents can be included in the report. But he does say all correspondence between Bush and Blair would be published, but there would be a few redactions in areas unrelated to the Iraq conflict. So he's just completely contradicted himself.
So this is a cover-up, this is obfuscation, and of course the sheer arrogance where we're being told, well, public, you don't need to worry your little heads about this because the report's going to be produced in front of MPs. Trust those MPs, the same MPs that went into the war in the first place. And as Louise is saying, total contradiction in terms. So yet another cover-up within the United Kingdom over unlawful wars overseas. Those wars continuing, and with the elections coming up, if you vote for Labour or the Lib Dems or the Conservative Party, you can be sure you're going to be voting for more wars in the future. Well, that brings us in very nicely to David Cameron, but an extraordinary article by the Guardian here, which is saying Cameron's 5-year legacy, has he finished what Thatcher started? And if we read the little headline here, Margaret Thatcher wanted to privatise Britain. David Cameron's ambition went further, assessing his legacy for their new book. Polly Toynbee and David Walker document the Tory leader's assault on the state. Now, I thought this was very interesting language, that we should have people like Toynbee and indeed The Guardian, which is only in existence by the huge advertising contracts for government positions, now actually admitting that David Cameron has been assaulting the state. So what's been going on? Well, if you think about his assault, it's not just the state, is it? It's the civil service, it's NHS, it's education, it's the armed forces, it's child protection, it's an assault on the poor, the elderly, and of course pensions. But interesting, are we beginning to see even the Guardian's government-funded journalists are waking up to what's really happening here, which is creeping communitarian dictatorship. So not just privatisation, because of course we've got a big political ideology coming in with it. And that leads us on very nicely to cider, which I think is quite popular with you.
I don't mind the odd bit of cider. What you got on it then?
Well, what you need to do is to get together with George Osborne, because the Evening Herald here in Plymouth has got a tremendous article. It says, Chancellor hangs out at cider factory after Plymouth visit. And some interesting things going on here, because I did not understand the article. I think it's indicating that this photo might have been photoshopped. George Osborne was in Plymouth. He was touring facilities. But I think David Cameron might have been inserted in the image. I'm not sure. We'll try and find out. I'm not sure I'd like to buy a bottle of cider after George Osborne has had his nose in it. But what's really important here is this. Because after years of assault by Cameron's Conservative, George Osborne is visiting what? Heavy industry in Plymouth. With no disrespect to the man who's got his cider business. Of course, Plymouth used to be a massive hive of building, of industry, shipbuilding in the dockyard, all of the trades that went around it. And then around the city was a ring of industry. It is no more. All of it is gone. There's no shipbuilding, no manufacturing, no trades. And of course, this is the result of an assault, as The Guardian says, by Cameron's Conservatives. I can't see Mike's face as I'm talking, but I'm sure Mike will be saying, well, working in a cider factory is probably a lot better than shelf stacking, but this is really where the Conservatives are taking us. And just a reminder, what was the Chancellor talking about a few days ago? Well, of course, He's now been exposed as having produced papers where he is personally working to help the fracking company Quadrilla be able to make more profits. So if you want a good business, get in with the Chancellor. But I suppose if you look on the bright side, fracking or cider, he's got his nose in it.
Yeah, I must say there's actually been a report there's been an earthquake apparently in Hampshire. So I did give Ian Crane a quick call this morning just to see is any fracking going on in that part of the world at the moment, and no, there isn't. So we don't know quite the cause, but it doesn't seem to be caused by fracking.
Okay, well, let's have a look at what the government is actually doing in Britain. And we just like to bring in a couple of images we've had before. So we'll start off here, of course, with the BBC. Nick Robinson produced a very cleverly worded article where he's nudging people towards a super coalition at the next election. And he wants to get people there by frightening them that if you don't really vote for a super coalition, the Nazis are going to get you. I wonder if there's any connection between the Holocaust debate and what Nick Robinson has been trying to do, conning the people.
Yeah.
So what else can we bring in? Well, let's have a look at this one. We also mentioned this in the last couple of days. Here we've got police forces in England and Wales now collaborating. So this is the grouping up of police, the regionalisation of police, bringing them under the control of fewer and fewer people. And of course, this ultimately will fall in line with the EU regions. And what else can we do? Well, have a look at this one, because again, Plymouth Evening Herald is boasting that Devon and Cornwall police and fire services are not only going to be looking after law and fire, they're also going to be helping to protect victims of domestic violence. So a lot of people, I think, are going to get some very big boot marks on their carpets because they're going to have very burly policemen and firemen coming in to say, are you all right, love, or have you been beaten up? And so we've now got police, fire service, social workers.
Nice.
And so we'll add that one into the mix. What's really behind it? Well, many people have simply forgotten that it was David Cameron that has implemented this Marxist, communitarian, big society state. This is what's being built at the back. Of course, we had heavyweight Mr. Pickles there. We've called it the big lie. This is nothing to do with giving people power. This is the fishing net to trap people in Cameron's new Marxist state. And the thing is that this is being put together step by step, propaganda, but the plan, we can now begin to see, really it's hidden in plain sight to the public.
Yeah.
So if you want to know what's causing the chaos and the mayhem, David Cameron's Marxist policy, of course, helped in by big society and behavioural control. And let's bring this in. This was the briefing paper, Behaviour Change Policy in Practice. And if we just have a look at one part of this, which is highlighted at the bottom, Oldham Council's cooperative public services model, the current challenging relationship between the council and its residents, says that behaviour change and soft power are at the core of its aspirations for the new leadership. So we don't have to make this up. David Cameron is doing is assaulting the country. He's undermining the nation state, common law, justice, liberty. And how do you do it? By behavioural change and the use of what they're calling soft power. We'll pause there at that stage.
Yeah.
The other thing you need is the means of blackmailing people.
Indeed. Okay, figures from the Ministry of Justice showed that hundreds of sex offenders who have had sex with under 13-year-olds are being let off with cautions, and those who are caught grooming and assaulting children seem to be getting away with a slap on the wrist. By law, there is a maximum jail term of 14 years for any sexual activity with a child 12 years of age and under, but police have handed out 437 cautions for those offences. That means there are at least 437 of these known people walking free to continue abusing and raping children. It was MP Philip Davis who required these figures from the Lib Dem Justice Minister Simon Hughes, but the Tory Justice Minister Mike Penning said the law is about to be changed to ban the use of cautions when relating to serious sexual offences. So I wonder if this law is going to be changed pre or post-election.
Well, I would imagine it will happen post-election, but of course the key bit is we still have Westminster covering up for its own paedophiles, wealth of evidence coming forward to the British police of the assault, abuse, rape and allegations of murder of children by senior British politicians and members of the establishment. And of course, just like Chilcot, a wall of silence. Nobody wants to speak. But what the government can do, of course, is raise some extra money from roads. And the Daily Mail here with an interesting article which says that Britain's motorists could be forced to pay to drive by the, what's that word? Kilometre. I think that should be mile, on British roads under plans being drawn up by Brussels. So this is apparently an EU plan. Here's the EU Transport Commissioner, Violetta Bulc, who's the lady who's implementing this. But what she wants is essentially road charging across the whole of Europe's road, the EU's road network. Well, this is only part of the lie because, of course, let's introduce arch political liar David Cameron. And this is a Guardian report from a little while ago where it said that David Cameron was unveiling plans to sell off Britain's roads. And of course, where did the report come from that it was a good idea to sell off Britain's roads? Well, none other than his old banking friends, NM Rothschild, because they suggested in a report in 2010 that privatising the road network could raise 100 billion. So if you've driven around and endured delays on the road, the real truth is that the billions of infrastructure spent on infrastructure for road charging has already been slipped into place. And this is a key issue as you travel on any of the main motorways, M5, M6, M1. You will see massive amounts of roadworks which have been going on for years. You've seen the gantries go in, the speed camera boards, and you've seen the CCTV cameras going in. Of course, all of that infrastructure, billions of pounds, slipped in with no debate in Westminster in order to help NM Rothschild bankers and others make more money out of the British public.
You did just say that might be a mistake. The headlines could be forced to pay to drive by the kilometre. Well, I don't think that's a mistake because if we're getting into Europe, everything's done in Europe in kilometres an hour.
Well, it's true, but I think I'm right in saying that at the moment the mile is still in existence.
In this country for the moment, but they're just preparing us, I reckon.
OK, we'll have a debate about sea miles in the future because the European Union's having a few problems with dealing with the sea mile. Well, what's happening in Westminster, Whitehall?
OK, so the Telegraph are exposing how government officials at Whitehall have spent 100 million on taxis, business class flights and first class travel in the last 4 years, even though back in 2011 George Osborne put a ban on the civil servants using luxury travel methods. The Ministry of Defence spent 34 million. The Foreign Office 23 million and the Ministry of Justice 20 million. So since Osborne's ban, business class flights have risen from 14 million to 15.2 million, and the Department for International Development's taxi bill has risen from 190,000 to 260,000. So my question is, did any of these departments actually listen to what Osborne was saying when he put the ban in place? And also, why was it not flagged up in the first year that spending was getting a little bit out of control, rather than leaving it 4 years to get to this figure, get up to this high figure?
I think the key to this, Louise, is always that what we see is a puppet show. There is no debate about what's really going to happen. There is no missing the figures or not understanding. What we're witnessing is collaboration across all three parties to destroy Britain. So this is just smokescreen for the public, and of course the Telegraph, like the other mainstream press, all they want to do is pump out a story. The journalists don't research it, but the government is destroying the country. Can we prove it? Well, I think the answer is yes. Let's have a look at what's happening with defence. And here we've got Mr. Fallon, who's casually saying, well, we're going to sell off more defence infrastructure. We're going to get rid of the old military buildings. We're going to get rid of the airfields. We need to raise funds for the front line. So he's talking about raising a few tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions, but peanuts on the scale of it. What is really going on here is treason, because this is the Lib Lab con undermining and destroying Britain's ability to defend itself. And this is all on the banking lie, which is no money, so we need austerity. And of course, it's significant that this attack on the military infrastructure comes just a few days after we see the government now turning around and attacking Britain's own special forces by accusing them of being responsible for the shoot to kill and the assassination policy in Northern Ireland. Evidence which has come to light over many years, of course, shows that those policies came straight out of British central government through Britain's own intelligence agencies. But we're hoping for more information on that in the very near future. Should have included this with the other one, really, and probably should have been yours, but somebody seems to have some guts. Lib Dem MP Tessa Moot has quit as Vince Cable's aide because she said she just can't support what's going on with fracking. And I thought, what a wonderful picture, because there are the empty benches. So presumably if she was saying, well, the government's got it wrong, there was certainly nobody in Westminster, or perhaps they pictured her during a child abuse discussion in Westminster.
Likely.
But we're going to say, as always, where is the in-depth BBC investigation over the dangers of fracking? True to form, the BBC refuses to properly report warnings of fracking danger and even the immense public interest. But luckily, Ian Crane is still out there with many, many good people on the ground, warning and protesting about what fracking is already doing to this country. Yep. And UK Column will continue to back him.
Okay.
If we remember.
If we remember. So hay fever and sleeping tablets are being linked now to dementia. A study by US JAMA, J-A-M-A, shows people who regularly take an antihistamine and antidepressants and I can't pronounce the word, basically incontinence tablets, have a greater chance of developing Alzheimer's. But doctors are actually telling people not to stop taking the tablets, but they are saying doctors and chemists should keep in mind what the study's showing and be careful when they're prescribing. So keep taking the tablets. Yeah, and these are the figures from the Alzheimer's Association, which I had a look at earlier, and the Alzheimer's Society believe that by this year there will be 850,000 people in the UK with dementia. 40,000 of those are young people, and by 2025 there will be around 1 million sufferers of dementia. But you keep taking those tablets that could possibly cause it.
So why would we want a society dumbed down, unable to remember things, mentally ill? Well, of course, that's exactly the society you want if you're going to subvert the country to introduce a police state. So we're linking these things. We make no apology for that, but where is the in-depth investigation as to why we've suddenly got this massive increase in people with mental health and memory problems in UK? No doubt those of you out there interested in health will be emailing and calling us to tell us, and we'll be happy to follow that along.
Coconut oil.
Coconut oil, absolutely.
Tablespoon a day, minimum.
Okay, now we're just going to remind people, weekend of the 28th, 27th, Friday the 27th of February through to the 1st of March is the British Constitution Group Spring Conference. And that conference is saying it is the time for action. And if you are now seeing the picture of Cameron's dictatorship emerging, we need to do something about it, and that requires people to know what they're dealing with and what can be done. So if you haven't been there, visit both the British Constitution Group website and UK Column, and you can see details of the conference and the great discounts that are being given for the hotel. Yeah. That's it. Thanks very much for joining us.
Bye-bye.
We'll be back same time tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye-bye.